On Sunday, there's the PDC World Championships of Darts, which marks the start of Christmas in the UK. So if you haven't bet on darts with bookie bashing before, I want to do a little video to explain what our tool does, the x180s tool. So here we have some ROI from previous years. These are bets that we've used our x180s tool to put onto the bet tracker. And we've had 3 winning years, and then last year was a negative year for 790 bets at 9.23% ROI. But those are bets that we just put on to the bet tracker. They're all going to be expected to be positive expectation. Some of them boosts, some of them standard markets. But let's explain a little bit what the x180s tool is. So if you see here, we have lines up for the Sunday evening session. And we divide our tools into 2 different ways. We have session lines, which is the group of games, and we have individual games lines. But the data all comes from the same place. We try and work out what the expected number of 180s is for each player. And then we bring in some other factors like checkouts and probability of winning the game. And we bring that all into the tool, and we watch and monitor the markets for any shifts, for any changes in weight of money. And from that, we can do a few fancy calculations. So looking at this pie chart here, the big red segment is Jamin Watamina, and it's our assessment that he's going to get the most 180s in the session on Sunday night. He is 2.94 to have the most 180s in his session. That's about 1/3 of that pie chart of the 6 players. The outsider, the little green slither, is the relative unknown Joe Comito, who is 40-1, 42.16. And we're expecting, it looks like about 17 180s in this session. So I can, work out the probability of over 20, over 21, under 19, under 18. So those are our session bets, if you like. It's the total number of 180s in the session, over, under that. We can use the bet builder to track those lines. And also the player to have the most 180s in the session, or the most 180s in the game, which is the second column there. So that's the first thing we have. And the second thing we have is the individual lines, this here. So looking at the first game, which is Thibaut Tricol versus Joe Comito, we've got lines for match 180s over and under, player 180s, both of them to get 180s, most 180s, drawn 180s, and then some combinations of these bets. So Tricol to win and have the most 180s is 2.27. We've got King of the Oki, which is a player to win, have the most 180s and the highest checkout. Just the individual highest checkout lines to win and have over 180s. We can edit those fields. To win and both to have over 180s. So those are the fields that we have at Bookie Bashing. They're all available in the bet builder, and you can load up any particular lines that you're looking at to work out what the odds are and to track them. They do move. There's not as much money in darts as other sports, but the markets still move, and we move in line with the markets. If I can do a word of warning for round 1. In the session in round 1, there are 4 games every period at the Ali Pali, right? So we have 3 round 1 games, and then a seed player, so on Sunday night it's Humphreys, will play the winner of one of the round 1 games. I think on Sunday, Luke Humphreys will play the winner of Tricol and Comito, the very first game. Now, we don't know who's going to win that first game. I mean, Tricol is the heavy odds-on favourite. Doesn't mean that he's going to win. So we don't have any lines for Tricol versus Humphreys. So our session bets, our total 180s bets, they are all sessions involving 3 games. Because the 4th game doesn't exist in our tool. Some bookmakers go 3 games, that like Coral and Ladbrokes and Betfred and Bet365 in their session lines. But do check what is involved there. Some go 4 matches in the session. They include the unknown match with the seed. like William Hill, PokerStars, Sky Bet. So if you're betting session lines in round 1, do make sure that you're using the 3-match session from bookie bashing against the 3-match session at the bookmaker, or you may be comparing apples with pears. You can make your own session at bookie bashing with any group of games that you want to. Simply go to the group of games and click down on the tick list next to the player and you can form a session. It's just we don't have that 4th game until the player is known, and that is a slight issue. In some sessions, the player is known, the match is known before the session starts, so you can make that 4-game session. But in other sessions, like the first one, we don't know who is playing Humphreys, so we don't know what that 4th game is, so we don't have that available. And quite frankly, our tool does not have the ability to create a 4-game session with a game that is unknown. Okay? I don't know how to do it. Trust me, I don't think you know how to do it. It's a really difficult thing to do. Looking at the particular edges that we can get in this, we can, obviously, I like, and I always have liked, going to bookmakers. For me, that is William Hill, Betfred, because I'm getting the same odds in shop as I am online, although some Betfreds, they can find it difficult to find the particular session markets. You really have to ask them to investigate their computer systems. At least in William Hill, you can go on to their SSBT, get the same odds as you can online. And I like betting on over 180s in a session. And often, if you find a session where one line is good, a lot of lines are good. So you can go the over 20, 21, 22, 23, and just make sure you're not staking too high when staking multiple lines like that, because if it turns out to be a really low number in that session, all of them are going to lose. I really like betting on most 180s in the session. You can get fantastic EV in that, not just on the outsiders, although it is more likely with the outsiders to have big EV, and trust me, there have been some big EV 40-1 winners that we've had in that market in the past, but also the favorites. I mean, it's a really big discrepancy that can happen between the bookmakers, traders, odds compilers, and our tool, and what commonly known fair odds. So that's one aspect of doing it. There's most 180s in a game, which if a bookmaker's got plus EV bets and more than one game, we can put into multiples. But also on the exchanges. Now, the exchanges can be a little bit illiquid, but we've got over, under 180s. We've got most 180s. So those can all be attacked. Can we do first player to get a 180? I don't think so. But may have to look at bringing that in because we've got all the input data for that. So there are some markets that you can go and seed. Just be prepared. If you're going to be doing this, try and seed 30% over, 30% under. As it gets closer, bring that into 20% over, 20% under. And be prepared not to have anything matched, because 180s on the exchange is not the most liquid market. I'm hoping to drive people in that direction, to be fair. There's also, you can have a look at enhanced specials, and if we've got that particular calculation in our tool, then we should be able to attack that market. Pre-tournament enhanced specials or pre-tournament anti-post markets, I always like getting the grid out to look at the difference between the quarters and see if they, like, for example, Luke Humphreys and Luke Littler, last year's finalists, are going to meet in the semi-final. If they both get there this year, so they won't meet in the final, which means someone from the other half has to get to the final. So there's maybe an interesting edge there. I think that's really been factored into a lot of the bookmakers' odds. 9-dot finish for Luke Littler's gone up. I'm not touching it because I think the market is right. It's quite difficult to work out because low sample size. He's had a few 9-darters this year. 9 darters per leg is a low sample size, but I did some pencil maths and I made it about 7.7, and I think it's trading between 7.6 and 7.8, so I won't be touching that particular market. There's 7 plus 170 checkouts in the PDC World Championship, though, at BetDAC, and at Smarkets there's 8 plus 170 checkouts in the PDC World Championships. So that begs the question, how many 170 do we think there's going to be? Well, going back to 2018 and then running forward, that's when the format changed with the number of players and the number of legs that were expected in the PDC World Championships. We've had 6, 3, 8 7.4 and last year 6. So that's an average of 6.25. Yet if you look at the markets think that there's going to be a good half to 3/4 170s less than that. And that's just from particular sharp markets. Then you go into places like Sky Bet, Requester Bets and things like that, and I'm seeing value. I'm seeing value for number of 170s in the PDC World Championships at various books. Not so much William Hill. Yes, Sky Bet if you've got one of them. But on the enhanced special, I picked up 5.7 for 7+ 170s. Treble 20 bullseye. And I think there might be, I don't know. I think at the low end of my estimation is 5.3 170s. The high end could be 5.8 180s. Now, if it's 5.8 180s, the odds of 7+ 5.8 170s, the odds of 7+ 170s should be fair odds, about 2.77. And I got 5.7 for this. Now, the market has come in, but at that figure, even the markets where you can get 8+ at 6, although it's low liquidity, I think 8+ should be about 4.37. I've looked over it and over and over and over it, and I think 170s in the tournament has been underpriced by a lot of bookmakers. So unless there's like this massive change in trend where players don't go for it, because a lot of players will hit 170 when their opponent either doesn't have an out or are unlikely to get their out, and so they'll play a safety game. Like whilst they could go for the 170, statistically they are better to go out in 6 darts if they don't go for the 170 and they leave themselves a 32 or double 10 or whatever their favourite double is. So I'm just wondering if darts players are becoming more professional, and as a result of that are going for the 170 less frequently, and as a result of that the expected 170s is lower even with respect to previous year's data. That's the only way I could be wrong here. But I'm fairly convinced that tournament 170s is a good angle for anyone that can get on it between now and Sunday. Right. If you're interested, by the way, I threw 1, 20 and 18, which is pretty par for the course for me when it comes to darts.